The next item on the agenda is the Moscow Human Rights Commission request for state legislature letter of opposition with David Duke, Chief of Police. Thanks, David.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. Last Friday, February 6th, the Human Rights Commission delivered a letter to Mayor Lambert and to all council members regarding a disturbing legislation action that's currently occurring in the House of Representatives in Boise. 2 bills have been introduced that will quash our gender identity and sexual expression city ordinance, which went into effect April 1st of last year. Included in your packet is the letter, the 2 bills that are currently having their hearings, and also the city ordinance. What I've asked today is if you'd let Chair Ken Fonts of the Human Rights Commission come forward and talk to you about what the Human Rights Commission has done with the letter and to present his concerns and how these bills will impact our ordinance if they become law.
That'd be great. Thanks. Ken, could you please come up?
So, Ken Fonts, Chair of the Moscow Human Rights Commission. The Moscow Human Rights Commission had met when we had heard inklings about this bill, and another one similar to it that was earlier. And so we had talked about it, and we then voted unanimously to send you this letter. We believe that the Representative Luker's bills, HB 426 and 427, I believe, would possibly, I mean, the legal decision isn't 100%, but it does seem like the legal people that we've consulted have said that it would either make the Moscow ordinance unenforceable or ineffective. And so we were concerned with this idea, and I do know that people in the other cities that have these similar ordinances are concerned with it as well, because I know the mayor of Boise spoke out at the legislative session against the bills. And so there are several layers here that we were hoping the city council would think about. One is the discrimination itself, and we feel that the bills are discrimination under the guise of religious freedom, that's being used as an excuse to discriminate. And the bill, while directed mainly at the LGBT community, is worded loosely enough that you could discriminate against single mothers. You could discriminate against women the way they dress. There's a whole list of things that are on there, the way it's worded. And so we've been working through the Northwest Coalition of Human Rights to get advice, and Tony Stewart in Kootenai County had several lawyers look at it up there, and that was their determination, that it would make it difficult for us to enforce it. And so we were concerned on the discrimination end that this promotes discrimination. We believe it's bad for business in Moscow and Idaho because most of the major companies do not like these kind of discrimination policies, and they would think twice about sending their people here. So we're concerned about that. We've already had issues in the past with images that we're trying to counteract for Idaho, even though Moscow doesn't always fit into those images, seen as kind of a oasis in there, but still, it gets to us. So all the discrimination issues are part of it. The other part is that if it does cause trouble for our city ordinance, then what that means is that it would be hard to enforce, it would create legal challenges, it would incur expense, basically, because they could argue against the ordinance, saying that it infringed on their religious beliefs. I'm not sure the exact process, but I'm assuming it would end up going to court. It would cause more costs and issues along that nature, or we would decide it's too expensive to not enforce it, period, which then makes the whole ordinance worthless, and then the discrimination continues. So I think that's it in a nutshell, is there kind of double issues going on there.
That sounds good. Thanks. Did either of you have questions for Ken? I was going to invite Rod to also come up and address this if there are any questions. Rod, I know that you presented at a human rights forum that the Human Rights Commission had on Thursday evening, specifically about our ordinance that we passed on April 1st of last year and the relationship with these one or both of these bills proposed in the House?
I can address those. I just actually looked it up on the state's legislative website to see what's going on. They both have been referred to the state affairs, but what was known as House Bill 427 has actually been reported out of commission and placed on general orders, so I would expect that they're going to take that up here very shortly. The House Bill 427, basically what it does is under the Idaho State Code, there's a section called, or there's a whole chapter called the free exercise of religion protection. And the 427 bill basically would extend the protections of that to non-governmental actors. So right now, the way the law is written, if the government acts and enforces somebody against a religious belief, they can use that as a defense. This, I think, as I read it, it would apply towards a private cause of action between two private parties. They'd be able to use their discrimination under the name of religion as a defense. They'd be able to raise that and show that it was their deeply held religious beliefs as to why they denied a certain person services. The House Bill 426, which is a whole new section under that law, and basically that would provide saying that a government can't deny a professional or occupational license to anyone based upon their exercise of free exercise of religion. How I could see that affecting the city is we issue, for example, taxi licenses. We would not be able to tell somebody that they couldn't have a taxi license if they were driving around saying we're not going to pick up anybody based upon their sexual orientation or gender identity, as long as they could show that that was their deeply held religious beliefs, which I don't know how you do that. But that's how I think that it would affect our ordinance. Somebody be able to use that as a defense if they were charged with violating or being or discriminatory towards somebody whose sexual orientation or gender expression or identity.
Thank you. I was involved in writing a draft letter. Two Moscow City Council members put together a draft letter to the Idaho Legislature dated today, and it's not very long. I can read it pretty quickly. We wrote, "We are proud that on April 1st, 2013, the Moscow City Council unanimously passed a city ordinance number 2013-06, prohibiting discrimination in housing, employment, public accommodations based on sexual orientation and/or gender identity and expression. This anti-discrimination ordinance provides equal treatment and protection for all of Moscow's citizens. We understand that currently there is a movement in the state of Idaho, as exemplified by recent introduced bills, HB 426, 427, to void all city anti-discrimination ordinances dealing with sexual orientation and/or gender identity and expression. We see this effort as an infringement on the rights of the cities of Idaho to pass our own ordinances and policies. Local jurisdictions best know their citizens, and that should be the most fundamental basis for ordinances, not preemptive legislation from legislative bodies far removed from local issues. Moscow is a wonderful place to live, and we wish to continue to support the equal treatment of all our residents. Providing protection from discrimination for all Moscow's residents is a major part of treating all people equally. In addition to this fair and balanced treatment, we believe that such policies help to promote the friendliness of our climate toward businesses and employees who may choose Moscow over other locations. The University of Idaho is located in Moscow, and as such, our city becomes home to many who apply for positions at the university. Sadly, due to the lack of anti-discrimination ordinances, the city and state have lost the first choice, highest functioning employees in the past. They choose to work in places where their basic rights are respected. Applicants look carefully at the social and legal climate of the city in which they would be living. Lacking adequate or even meager protections, highly qualified candidates have declined employment here in favor of other states. Moscow's current ordinance provides assurances that make our city attractive to both businesses and employees who can help enhance the economic climate. The religious rights of Idaho residents are already clearly and strongly upheld within the Idaho State Constitution. House Bills 426 and 427 are unnecessary toward this end and instead establish a divide among many of our proud residents. We urge you to oppose these two bills. We stand by our right to pass an ordinance to maintain our equitable treatment of all people with respect and dignity.
That letter in our packet?
No, I emailed it around this morning. So you just would have gotten it this morning.
Yeah, make sure that gets into our packets next time.
Yeah, well, we just got it. This whole thing's happening pretty quickly, so.
Well, I can't respond to your letter, Tom, because I haven't read it. I mean, there's parts of it I think sound good. I certainly accept the basic concept of what you're talking about here. The biggest problem that I have is that we in good faith passed an ordinance that we all passed unanimously and believe in it. And now we have the state legislature telling us they don't think they want us to do that. I take great umbrage at that, to put it that way. You know, the state legislature, the state of Idaho, gets very upset when the federal government tries to still tell the state what they can and cannot do. Yet now they're turning right around and telling the cities what we can and cannot do. And that in itself bothers me. I suspect I would support a letter, but I would like a letter that's very, very much to the point of the order of what I just said. I don't think it needs to be all flowery and a feel-good letter right now to the state legislature. They need to be shown the facts. It's an economically disadvantageous. It is going against the rights of local government to do what we think is best for our own citizens. That's the flavor of the type of letter I would like to see. And it doesn't need to be long. It can be short and very much to the point.
John.
I agree with you, Wayne. I think that the ordinance that we have takes care of Moscow real well. We have got an ordinance, even though I was not on the council when that went through 6-0. I probably would have voted for it had I been there. But the issue that we've got here, I think, is more an issue of, as you said, the state deciding with some very, a little bit of foliage over it and calling it deeply held religious views to try to, at the very best, weaken the ordinance that Moscow and 6 other cities have got. And I think it was brought up that it's possible that unwed mothers or other people could end up. And I think that's the way we ought to approach it. If we send a letter at all, it ought to be, as you said, a base letter saying essentially the state of Idaho does not like the federal government sticking its nose into our business, and we do not like the state legislature sticking their nose into the city of Moscow's business. Should be said in a much nicer way than that, but I think that's it. So I'd really like to look at a letter that approached it from the way you said.
And addressed to our local legislators.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know, basically butt out.
Yeah. Well, I'm certainly very open to any editorial comments on the letter that we've drafted to date. and we can turn this around and get it out with whomever wants to sign it. I'm not sure perhaps we don't wait one more week and have it go to the full council, but maybe we can edit it this week and sign it as we
So,
like.
is this something that you want the council to distribute as the official position of the city? Should we circulate it among the rest of the council members to get their review of that letter?
I did circulate it this morning, and again, as we heard, that people haven't had a chance to read it yet and respond. I think the only person that responded so far was Walter, and he commended the letter, but didn't want to, send it off.
I think the letter he was talking about was this one.
I don't think so, but maybe he was referring to something else, or maybe he was.
If I may.
Yes, please.
If this is going to be an official city position letter, then this needs to go before the full council at a council meeting. Other than that, it can only be an opinion letter signed by whatever council members want to sign it. That's what I think.
Yeah.
So I guess that was my question, is how do you wish to proceed? We can certainly work on drafting a letter and getting it before the
How
council on
fast is this
Tuesday.
moving through the legislature?
I was going to ask Rod that.
I don't know how fast.
Well, it would seem to me it'd be worthwhile to take another week. Let's get it to the full council. Let's vet this thing out just a little bit. Let's get it to say, if in fact we're going to send a letter, let's get it to say what we want it to say, and then get it out next week after the council meeting.
Okay.
The Human Rights Commission's recommendation was that what we would like to see is the city take a position on it with an
so
official
it'll have
letter.
to go to council.
Yeah,
then.
that's
Right.
what we were hoping for. Now, we would take individual council members signing a letter, but we would prefer the city take a position.
I would agree with that. I would prefer that the city have one letter that we send in, as opposed to multiple people, or, some subset of us signing it.
Let me suggest something else
Yes.
that would be even stronger. We have 7 cities that have taken and created their own legislation.
Mm-hmm.
How well can you communicate with these other entities and put together one single letter signed by all entities?
I'm not sure. I could check on that.
I think that would be a powerful.
I do know the mayor of Boise and the city of Boise spoke out at the legislature at the hearing on the lucre bills already, and I know that Coeur d'Alene has been active doing this. I'm not sure about the other cities.
It might be an issue where if we get all 7 people trying to agree on a letter, that we can never agree on what it needs to be said. So that might not work.
And it may
So
take a while to
it
get
could
all
take a
7.
while.
I think right, that could be difficult. I think we should at least get our letter off, and I think I've been in touch. I spoke out at the Association of Idaho Cities meeting last week in Boise. Didn't get too terribly far in that comment period, and I've since sent an email to the executive director of the AIC asking for an opinion on what it would take to have an AIC opinion on this, Association of Idaho Cities, but I have not received the feedback on that. But I have been in touch with Boise City Council members to see if we can work with them on something more collaboratively.
How'd that go?
Still communicating, but
Okay.
I think we can. I think there's definitely interest in making something happen. They've actually been, in the hearing room testifying against the bill. So I think that the sentiment is there. I don't know if they're actually submitting a letter as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're
But-
getting a letter since they were testifying.
Bill,
If you would like, administration can certainly work on an amended letter in accordance with the direction that was received today from the committee, circulate among the council, and work to get that.
that would be
impacted
great.
forward.
And I think you might. You've got it in your. So you could. Okay, that'd be great. Thanks a lot.
Now, this particular issue is also going to go in front of Public Works Finance?
No,
this is not on the agenda. What we'll do is we'll take a letter. It'll have the recommendation. So this committee has supported providing a letter to the state. legislature with some amendments as has been voiced. We'll work on drafting that, and we'll put that on the full council agenda, not on consent, but as a regular agenda item on Tuesday. And then we'll circulate the letter, the revised letter, among everybody prior to the meeting so we can try to get that finished version of the letter in the packet for Tuesday's meeting.
That sounds great. Sound good with you, John?
Yeah, well, I can.
Wayne?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.